Great. So the session today is about CSR and empowerment. And what we want to do is guide you through launching your next initiative. So I'm Shadi Banna. I'm joining you today from Berlin. And I'm the Chief Empowerment Officer in Potential.com. We hope this session is going to be valuable to you. Please feel free to interact on the chat as you go along and as we go along collectively. So here's the agenda for today. I'm going to speed through a lot of these topics because I want to leave some good time for the open discussion and the Q&A. So I'm going to start off by talking about why is this important. And since you're all on the call, we're not going to spend too much time. You already know the importance of why we should be launching more CSR and empowerment initiatives. We're then going to move into a very practical how to launch these initiatives, what is important, what are some of the reporting opportunities that are available. And there's a lot of confusion these days about standards of reporting on impact. So we'll talk briefly about that. Then we're going to do a very short workshop to help you formulate your next initiative. And that's going to be in a few minutes, a couple of minutes, but I want you to really reflect on how you could apply this in your own organization or your own work. And then we're going to give you some templates and case studies from our clients on 3 key topics that we know are sort of hot these days that are being requested a lot by us. So hopefully you'll be able to learn. The examples I'm going to share are with large organizations and governments. So they're big initiatives, but at least they will give you some idea of what could be done, and then you could tailor it to your own specific activities. And then we're going to leave it with an open discussion and Q&A. So I'm going to plan to spend about anywhere between 35 to 40 minutes on 1 to 4, and then we'll leave the rest 15 to 20 minutes as an open discussion. That's fine with everyone. Let's move ahead and we continue. Great. So why do we provide, or why should we provide these kind of CSR and empowerment initiatives? First of all, we could see that people everywhere are requesting improvements, change. People everywhere can voice their concerns. And this is why you could see in politics has become much more difficult these days. Governments are having to really balance between doing well, focusing on keeping the economy going, and as well doing other kind of providing growth and opportunities. Of course, the pandemic has caused a lot of challenges to be exacerbated during that period. But everywhere we find the biggest challenge to face humanity as a whole is the climate change aspects, where all over we're facing difficulties, and it's become clear, and we're seeing this live in our weather patterns all over the world. So this is one of the big issues. And this goes back, some time ago, back in 2015, the United Nations came up with the Sustainable Development Goals that addressed the various aspects of challenge areas that we should be focusing on as a global community. And all of the United Nations countries have signed up to these UN Sustainable Development Goals. I'd like in the chat if you can tell me if some of you are actually working on any of these goals in particular, but they can be summarized in these 5 Ps: people aspect, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnerships. And there are, of course, 17 goals. Behind these 17 goals, there are many sub-goals, and these form one way of reporting on impact, which we will talk about later on. But the SDGs have been there since 2005. They are a roadmap for what we need to do by 2030. We're not doing great on many of these, unfortunately, but at least now people are really much more aware. Governments and companies are much more dedicated to do what they can to address these challenges. Corporates have also become under clear pressure from all stakeholders, investors, individuals, their customers, and the governments, that they cannot just pursue profits. They need to be looking after the 3 Ps, not just the profit, the 1P, but actually also looking after the planet and people in their communities as they go around. This has been very, very powerful, and has developed this need for an ESG, environment, social, and governance practices that are now getting pushed out to many companies. Investors are demanding them. Banks are giving preferential treatment for companies that have ESG, environment, social, and governance commitments. So this is a very good topic that has developed and is developing further as we go along. A lot of companies used to just do lip service for some of these topics. One area in the environment is called greenwashing, where companies would come and say, oh, we're doing something for the environment, but practically there's not much really happening. Another aspect was companies would come and do these small activities, volunteering, beach cleaning sessions, or some small activities that are, voluntary basis. They were good and they are good, but then we need much bigger impact to be done by companies. And at the same time, the time for companies to come and apologize for mistakes that they have done is sort of gone. Companies now cannot just, when they go and do a mistake or about something, just come and apologize. They really need to do the hard work to make a proper difference. And that's why we really need big impact, and specifically when it comes to big ESG initiatives. This is a developing area. A lot of companies have struggled to come up with proper reporting, proper initiatives, etc. Today, what we're going to talk about is how do you take these CSR and empowerment initiatives and let them feed into your ESG strategy. And that's a very good starting point for any kind of ESG work that an organization is doing, or they are a good way to amplify things that they're already working on. When it comes to empowerment and CSR initiatives, we really believe in the combination of empowerment and innovation. You want to do something that is good for your community, but at the same time, give your community an opportunity for them to innovate solutions to their challenges in the areas that are important for you. So we had a bit of a chat before we started with, for example, Hassan, who's working in Egypt, is part of a hospital group. And in that particular case, why can't we empower the community around the hospital, the citizens, to know more about how they can have better well-being? Why can't we help that community to innovate solutions for the benefit of the wider community around the hospital network? And that's an example of large-scale CSR and empowerment initiatives. When you educate and empower the individuals to know what they need to do better for their, for themselves and those around them, then the next step could be that you help them innovate solutions that they will benefit from, but also benefit you as an organization and benefit the wider community. So this is an example of where our focus on empowerment innovation come together. So how do we do such initiatives, and what's needed, and how do we report on them? Now I'm going to take you through a couple of steps that are critical in any of these kind of initiatives. The first step is stakeholder engagement. The stakeholder engagement is a critical part where you look at who are my target audience, who am I really focusing on impacting? And based upon that group of community, they could be students, they could be women, they could be unemployed people, underserved communities, whatever is that target audience you're looking for. Then you see who are the stakeholders around that target audiences and target beneficiaries that I should be focusing on. Who could be involved? They could be, government entities. Maybe you're working on an initiative on better well-being, but the Ministry of Health in your country has also got some kind of activity. So how can I align with them? How can I bring them on board? Maybe I'm working on, I'm an organization that has a supply chain. I work with farmers who supply me with certain products. How can I support the farmers to be part of this and see who are the stakeholders around those farmers? Maybe they are the retailers that sell the products, the end products. Maybe they are exporters that export these products. So the key involvement, or the key first step, is to identify who are the stakeholders that can be involved in my initiative that can also amplify what I'm doing with the target beneficiaries. So that's step number one. Now, this used to be hard to do previously because it's hard to talk to all of these different organizations, get them all to be working on the same objective. And that's where platforms become important. And we in Potential.com have been developing over the past 15 years an empowerment platform that does just that. You need a platform to scale your initiatives. You need a platform to be able to bring on board 10, 20, 30, 100 partners in one place. You need a platform to be able to reach out and address tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of community members that could be engaged and could benefit from your initiative. These platforms in the past were missing. Today, we have platforms like the Potential.com platform that allow you to bring all of these stakeholders together and benefit the target audience in an efficient and scalable way. The third element is reporting standards. The reporting on impact has been a topic that has been evolving, still is evolving. There are many attempts and there are many different ways to approach it. But there are, we align with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals reporting. We also align with the IMP. When I say align, it means that when we design one of your programs, your CSR initiatives on our platform, we ensure that the reporting side of it, the real-time dashboard that you will be able to see how's my initiative doing, how's the impact that I'm having, will feed straight into your CSR and ESG and sustainability reports. And you'll be able to extract that data and then use it, or use the visualization of the various impacts straight into your reports. So those are the three key elements that are needed in such large-scale empowerment and innovation initiatives. Like we said, step number one is identify the stakeholders around your primary target audience. Step number two, have a platform that is customized so that it automates a lot of that discussion so you can scale it. It doesn't need a huge operation, and you can scale and amplify what you're doing. And step three, align with the reporting standards that are most important to you. And these could be things that are related to what your government is tracking, or things that are standard globally, such as the GRI standards or the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals or the IMP standards that are now being developed. So here are the three things we discussed, and this way you can really measure impact and create impact at scale. The important thing here is that creating impact can have a direct result on creating profits as well. If you are a business, there is no need anymore to compromise profits to create impact. You can do both. If you are an NGO, you want to be able to create impact, but you want to also be able to scale and make your initiative sustainable. And that's where the profits, you're not going to be taking the profits out of your business or out of your organization as a nonprofit, but you want to be able to generate profits that can be reinvested into your initiatives and then allow them to scale and be sustainable. So that's in a nutshell our overview. Now we're going to jump into a mini workshop. What I would like you to do now is to think about your own stakeholders, your own high priority initiative. And I could see Hanan saying that I saw earlier that English is not an easy language for her to understand. So I hope we'll send you the recording. You could watch this at a slower pace, Hanan. And if you've got any specific questions, feel free later on to ask as well, or even through email. Same with everyone else. Let me know on the chat how are things going so far. Is it too fast, or are you okay? And are you ready for the mini workshop? I'll be asking you now a few questions, and I'd like you on the chat to respond with these questions. The first one is, what would be your main business or social impact objective? Would it be empowerment? Would it be ESG reporting? Would it be open innovation? Would it be market intelligence or anything else? Can you let me know on the chat what would be your primary business or social impact objectives that you're working on? Hassan is saying ESG reporting. Okay, great. Anyone else? And empowerment. And that's another important point, Hassan, is that you can have several of these. Actually, in a lot of our programs, you'll find that we tick all of these boxes, in the sense that if you are doing something around ESG reporting, why not also do the empowerment that actually gives you the reporting aspect? Why not also, as part of that empowerment, create in the program, have an open innovation angle as well? So all of these can come together, but I'm happy to see you talking about your priorities. Emily, sent to the host and panelist, empowerment and open innovation, excellent. So those are the kind of things. So that's step number one, define what is your primary objective, because then that will guide you later on in terms of how you go about moving forward. Second, who's your primary target audience? How can you define your primary beneficiaries? Who would you think, I mean, from this list or others, that you think you can have or would like to have the most impact on? Also, please share on the chat. Okay, so now the next question, step two. Hassan saying entrepreneurs and underserved. Nagwa saying clients. Nagwan, sorry. And Baza youth, okay. Great. I mean, so continue bringing them all. Hanan saying all. Hanan, the thing is with all, you can probably, but we would always suggest that you start with a more defined user group, because when you say you want to benefit all, it's very hard to reach the whole community from day one. So it's better to think of it from a segment of that community that you really feel you want to focus on. And then from there on, your initiative can support everyone with across, over time. But it's good that you start with as defined an audience as possible that can then grow into this whole community. Jacques saying vulnerable refugees, youth and women. Excellent, again, definition. In terms of vulnerable refugees, unfortunately, there are many refugees around the world now that are available. And then youth and women, of course, would be a priority, because youth, if we empower them, they can then take responsibility of their future and have opportunities for themselves. And women who play the role in the household to support everyone around them are also very critical in such activities. So that's great. Now you've got the step two and step one done. Now step three, what would be the incentive that we can provide the target audience? Now this incentive is important because we want to attract the target audience to come to us. So if we're Kolawul, so I hope I pronounced that right, is targeting youth and students. So great, we want to attract the youth, we want to empower them. What would be the thing that we can offer them? Are we offering them some opportunities where they could get jobs, or some opportunities where they could start up their businesses and we can fund some of their businesses? Or could it be as simple as we just offer them recognition and prizes and maybe, something that they could then put on their CV? It doesn't have to be too complicated, doesn't have to be expensive, but there has to be some clear incentive that we can communicate in our communication to attract that target audience to come and join our program. This goes back to the point I was mentioning with Hanan earlier, when you set a target audience, you can then identify what incentive can I put in place that is most interesting to that target audience. So when it comes to early stage youth, opportunities for scholarship, as Kolo was saying, or for internship opportunities, these are very valuable to them, especially for high school kind of students, that age group, or university students. This is a critical, nice incentive for them to come on board. And then once you define that, it becomes easier for us to see who are the stakeholders I need to have on board. Universities in that case, the industry that could provide jobs, etc. So it also starts to define who are the stakeholders that in phase one I really need to be focusing on. So great. I love the speed of your interactions and your answers, because this is you're clearly getting it, and you're able to now define more and more that process. Now, so that you align with a certain standard that everyone now more or less understands. Like we were talking earlier, there are, even in the ESG reporting standards, a lot of that is still evolving. So there isn't a clear standard that we can come and say, this is the standard that everyone's going to follow. There are several competing standards that are out there. But when it comes to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, this is one thing that everyone sort of agrees on. So choose, based on the ones that you mentioned, which of these goals would be important to you. Hassan mentioned several of them. I saw from your answers earlier that a lot of you would actually be ticking several of these boxes. No poverty, the education piece, decent work and economic growth, for some of the comments that were mentioned earlier. So choose from these which ones are you would have that are important for you. And even you might be able to define one or two that are really, really top of mind and important, most important for you. Now, this is a mini workshop. I mean, by doing this process, you've really defined what would be the format of your initiative, who would it benefit the most, what would be the kind of things that you'd want to get out of it. I encourage you to send it to this email we have here, start-now@potential. What we'll do is we will basically formulate for you how based on your answers, what could be a template that we have that can allow you to be up and running in the shortest amount of time with your initiative and in the shortest amount of course cost. So again, this whole process of launching these kind of initiatives used to be quite expensive and quite difficult. Now, what we've done using a platform, the potential.com platform, is we've simplified this process as much as possible. And that's why I encourage you, if you'd like, send us the answers you have to these 4 questions, and we'll come back to you with what could be a template that gets you up and running in the shortest amount of time. We'll also share with you the marketing material that could be used for your community, for your target audience. We'll share with you which kind of content and education we have in our library that could be useful for your initiative. And then you can engage your own experts or tap into some international experts that we might have. This is an optional element, but we had that discussion briefly with Hassan earlier. Even from a volunteering perspective, you might be able to integrate from your organization's volunteers who will act as experts into this initiative. So anyway, once you send the emails, we'll be able to guide you in terms of what's the best way to get forward. And there are many other possibilities that you can use the platform, such as fundraising, such as sponsorship opportunities for your community that might be able to sponsor certain aspects of the platform that you have or certain aspects of your program. You could turn this into an open innovation competition. There are many, many possibilities when you use a platform like this. And here you can go back to that question the first question I was asking you in terms of what do you want to get out of it. You can see over here that with using such a platform, you get a lot of things by default out of it. So you don't have to compromise and I just want to launch an ESG reporting tool. No, actually, you can also do the empowerment and report on that in your ESG reporting. You can also do the innovation, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the mini workshop. Now we're going to move into some templates and case studies. Everything okay so far? Let me hear from you. All right, Hassan, great to hear that it's useful for you. I'd love to hear from the others as well. And let's continue now into some examples. Great to hear from Emily as well. And Kaloe, excellent. All right, so now let's go to some case studies. This is where you can get some ideas from best practices from our clients. Like I said, I mean, these clients are some of, large organizations. So it's not that you need to think of them this big, but this used to be, again, these kind of initiatives used to be only possible because, after spending a lot of budgets and a lot of resources behind it. But now we've really simplified this process. So let's start with the first one, which is around financial literacy. So Bank Muscat, the biggest bank in Oman, launched this initiative on our platform 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, or 4 years ago, to educate and empower the community in general in Oman to know more about how to plan for their financials, how to save, how to invest. And that's again, if you look at the steps that we mentioned, so there was several purposes of this. One is that they wanted to do this as a CSR activity and have ESG reporting on it. That's step number one. Step number two, the target audiences were several target audiences. And you can see here the categories, so categorized into several profiles for career starters. So there was a category that was one target audience, mid-career professionals, and for young families. Each one where there's different target audiences that are involved in this. And the idea in step 3, so they defined the target audience, the incentive was that you can come up with your own financial action plan if you complete this, and you can come up with a certificate of accomplishment. So this was the sort of incentive that the bank put in place for everyone. So after you go into the tracks, you learn about, for example, in the career starters track, so 18 to 24-year-olds, you learn about the art of budgeting, banking services, credit cards, car loans, etc. And as you go and you're learning, you're actually also producing your action plan. And that then serves as a practical way for you to take what you learned and apply it in your early career. Same thing for the other aspects. Now with financial literacy has always been a big topic, especially since people lose track when it comes to credit card payments, etc., about how much they're spending. Some people spend more than they earn, which is a big issue. Some people take loans on their credit cards, which is also a big issue, and they don't know that they're paying so much, high interest. A lot of people earn a lot of money in the early stages of their career, but they don't do proper planning and saving for their retirement, and that's a big issue as well. So these are big topics that are important globally. There's a lot of great content in it. One new area that we're developing in the financial literacy track that is available to you, if this is of interest to you, is the new forms of financial resilience when it comes to, for example, how to launch NFTs. I'm not sure if you're all tracking this, but how can you make money as an artist from launching your own NFT, non-fungible token projects? How can you make money from social media by either being an influencer, podcaster, things like that? So there are new areas of financial literacy that we're adding as well to other programs, and Bank Muscat is also going to be adding that to their program. But here's an example that I've just shown you from a platform running to support financial literacy enablement across a country, which is Oman in this case. And the website for this platform is maliyatbankmuscat.com if anyone's interested in seeing it. So that's one example of financial literacy track, and the template for launching a financial literacy program is ready to go on our platform if anyone is interested in that angle. We'll just customize it for the target audience, the branding, etc. Now, another example or case studies around entrepreneurship and innovation. This is something that the Ministry of Economy in the UAE has launched also on our platform. It's a big initiative that aims to position the UAE as the entrepreneurial nation, which it is. And I want to zoom into the 3 programs that, again, are critical in this kind of entrepreneurship innovation aspect. And like I was mentioning, we have templates for all of these 3 areas ready to go. So there's a skilling up area, and the skilling up initiative is for anyone that wants to learn about entrepreneurship and innovation. They could take challenge areas in their community and convert that into solutions and innovations. In the process, they could learn about innovation design thinking. They could learn about how do I come up with a business plan, things like that. That's what happens at the skill up track in this particular program. But in other programs, this is what is usually part of open innovation activities. So there's a platform for that with content ready to go. There's also a startup track for anyone that wants to set up their businesses. So someone who already has an idea, already has a product, but wants to license their company, that wants to start hiring people, that would be the track that they go into. And here there's a strategy development toolkit that people can follow. And then the third aspect is for the scale-up track, which is focusing on businesses, established businesses that want to scale what they're doing. So companies that are already operating but want to export internationally, or want to grow internationally, or want to hire more people, they would go into that track. And you can see, like I've mentioned in the in the whole session so far, you can see how the target audience is well defined for each of these categories. Based on the target audience, there are a set of partners who are involved as part of the stakeholders and engagement. And each one of these tracks has its own reporting impact and KPIs. The Skill Up track focuses on reporting on how many people got trained, how many people came up with their innovations, etc. The startup track got KPIs linked to how many people set up their businesses, how many people have been hired. And the Scale Up track is how much growth of value have we provided these entities. Now I'm going to zoom into the third case study, which is a program funded by HSBC running on our platform. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this because the program focuses on the UN Sustainability Development Goals, and they've chosen in particular 3 goals. So here, going back to our workshop, if you think about it, the target audience is youth, 15 to 18-year-olds. So they're high school students before they go into university. The objective is that we want, the HSBC wants to empower them and create an open innovation program for the students to come up with innovations to social challenges they're facing in their communities along these 3 sustainable development goal categories. And the program has been very successful. The main reason that HSBC, focused on it is that they've identified through various research that the Middle East, North Africa region where this program is running has a big need for jobs. And at the same time, climate change is affecting the region more severely than other places. So the opportunity was, let's create this innovation and social entrepreneurship program that helps these students come up with innovations to solve these local challenges that they have. And the incentive, if you recall in our workshop, we had the incentive that there's prizes and incubation. The prizes are every year, the best 3 solutions get cash prizes. And at the same time, they get an opportunity to be incubated and to set up their businesses, even though these are high school students. But the program has been really successful. It's been running for now 4 years. We call the graduates of the program who made it to the final stages of the acceleration program ambassadors. So there are program ambassadors now all over the region. You could see how the stakeholders were involved in this case. Because we're talking to youth, the stakeholders, as you recall in our mini workshop, were the people around the youth that are important to support the program, people like teachers, parents, volunteers, schools. They can all be onboarded through the same platform, so everyone works towards the same objectives. And here's the reporting outcomes using the IMP impact reporting model. And here you can see the impact dimensions. And all of this is, again, ready out of the box from the platform. So when HSBC, as the owners of this program, they go into their dashboard, they could see at any point of time the different metrics in one view, and they can export all of that data so that they can put it into their sustainability ESG reports whenever they're needed. And it's all updated in real time. Here's how the program gets rolled out across the period of 6-month cycles that the program is actively running. And every year we have a new version of the program come out. And like we said, the program has been highly successful, has won several international awards. And that's really a gold standard of launching these kind of empowerment, innovation, CSR kind of initiatives. So we want you to take action. I want to end on this, go back to that slide the process we mentioned earlier. Have a look at your business objectives, target audience, what can you offer them, and the SDGs areas. If you're interested, send it to us on startnow@potential.com, and our team will get back to you with, how can you take this forward in the shortest possible amount of time and with the least amount of budget, so that you can quickly start to amplify what you're already doing.